Welcome to Perth Dialogues. It's so I've been attached with YSPN for a few years now. It was a great help when I came to Australia. So when I came in, I think 2014, and I joined in 16 something with a lot of people there. So yeah, it's been some time. And uh, when I started this channel, I thought like people should know the work that YSPN does in terms, especially not just in Perth, but across Australia and New Zealand. So you spread your wings across. And I was just researching on it, and I
Yeah,
felt
it's
like there's
global.
nothing in
Yeah,
Australia. It
it's
doesn't say that you
a
are
global network.
for Australia. It's Sikh network.
Yeah, yeah. Trying to make it bigger.
Yeah, so you've covered the whole of Australia, the whole globe. That's good. That's good because I was engaged with another Sikh organization, World Sikh professional network or business network, and they are very much structured. And you have to be to do this to get into this. There's a lot of barriers to get into, but YSPN is better. Not much barriers. You can join. So that's good. And that's what brought me to YSPN, and that's what I thought, like, because there's less barriers, people can join and benefit from it. So more people should know about YSPN because that's the idea. Good. So let's get to know you. So you have been a professional, good professional. Your LinkedIn is full of celebrations and achievements and long list of achievements. So I'll let you talk about yourself, and then how you
Yeah,
got
no, thank you.
with YSPN and
I
what
think I've been
YSPN is,
working for
and
about
you know
14 years now. So
just
I
introduce.
started off with an internship in my last year of uni. I managed to get into an organization called SAP, a large German ERP company. That was a really, really good first position because we were almost in a startup environment, and I think working for a German company taught me about quality. So they're obviously known for their quality. So that helped to provide some really strong foundations to take pride in your work, to take pride in the product or the service that you're putting out there. You just don't want to create something that's subpar and put it out there. Um, so I think that was a really, really good first job to help instill some really, really important values, and I'm going to come back to that word later. And then I moved into consulting, I moved into startups, and then I've pretty much been in project management since. I had a side business a number of years ago around performance and well-being coaching. So that also strongly aligned to my values. This is all going to come together very quickly. And then ultimately, I started getting involved in YSPN. I think it was about 9 years ago now. I went to an event because my my mum was like, "Hey, go there, meet some people," um, and it was a really great event. And then I thought, okay, how can I be involved? Because I knew one of the people, so I'm like, I've got time, I've got energy, and all that sort of stuff. Let's get involved in this. And I joined a mentoring team. I quickly got promoted to the mentoring lead, and then about 4 years ago, I became the chair. So I think coming back to values, what's important for me anyway in terms of values is growth. Contribution. So within Sikhi, Seva, such a huge and integral concept, right? So are you doing your seva, whether it's at the Gurdwara or whether it's in some other sort of mean, YSPN provides that way to provide knowledge seva, right? We're all coming up with programs and connecting people in a professional sort of aspect, and the way we're doing that is through online events, face-to-face events, podcasts as well, mentoring programs, all these sort of things where we do need to, come up with a program or initiative and then coordinate people both locally as well as digitally. So I think one of the big things that attracted me into the organization was that we could do this on a global scale. We could give back, we could, contribute, seva. And I think for me, the really three big things that we're trying to achieve is how do we develop people and how do we make sure that we're different to, for example, like a Toastmasters? If we're just offering professional development for the sake of it, there's nothing that unique. But the thing that's unique about Sikhism is the sense of values, right? So I talked about seva before, but there's a whole bunch of other values: equality, humility, compassion, servant leadership, justice, courage. These are the things that we want to help people develop, these sense of values, right? Then how do we connect people? I know you had come to Australia a number of years ago, and I'll admit I don't know that much about Perth and how many gurdwaras there are as an example over there, but on the East Coast, there's so many gurdwaras, and the community is very fragmented. And so, how do we bring people together with a common cause, right? And so, connecting people locally as well as then globally is a huge sort of endeavor to make sure that people realize there are other people out there equally as ambitious as you, equally wanting to become a change maker, equally wanting to become a leader, equally wanting to just do good for the companies or the societies that they live and work in. So how do you find that network of people that can help support you grow and then give back? And then the third thing is raising the profile of the community. There was an article a number of years ago, and I might butcher the stat, but if from memory, it was like 30 to 60% of people with the last name Singh or Habib are less likely, I think, to get an interview or to pass the screening process. It was a shocking statistic, right? And so, as a minority, what you want to do is make sure that your community is represented the best as possible, so that there isn't that negative bias. So that's sort of what YSPN is doing. I got attracted to it because I fell in love with that mission as well, and it's just a fantastic way to meet people and give back in a really global and impactful way.
Good. You talked about the mentoring side and also the professional network as a way of giving back. And by God's grace, I've been involved in both. I have been a part of a big mentoring program, which was very, very successful, grant funded, government funded, but very successful, and it has closed down now. It's probably watered down too much because of lack of funding. So, and professional networks, I did try to set up a professional network in WA as well, so that it's Indian professional
Yeah.
networks, and let's bring people in. It's such hard work to bring people in for professionally, as compared to in cultural terms. Here's a cultural event, let's come and dance and meet and things. So I'll talk to both about, because it's a important discussion. Let's start with your mentoring program. I also got an email that you're going to start your mentoring cycle very soon. So how does your mentoring program runs?
Yeah, I'll start with the
What
last one.
people
What we're trying to
can
achieve is really
expect from it,
help
and what are you trying to achieve through
juniors
that
and
mentoring
intermediate
program?
professionals accelerate as quickly as possible. Within the modern day working world, um, soft skills are probably one of the most important things that you can develop. When you go through primary school, high school, university, etc., you don't really get taught soft skills. Emotional intelligence, self awareness, influence, communication, collaboration. These are the things that you don't really get taught too much of. And within our South Asian society, there's so much of a focus often on hard and technical skills. So, with regards to our mentoring program, I'll start off with what we're trying to achieve. We really are trying to help junior and intermediate professionals accelerate their career as quickly as possible. And within the modern day working world, soft skills are probably the most critical thing that you need in today's working environment, and especially to become more of a senior individual within the organization or even in your community. And in the South Asian culture, we don't talk about this, and we often don't, have a huge focus on it. It's often book smart and get good grades and yeah, and do well from a hard and a technical skill perspective. There's not so much a focus on influence, self-awareness, emotional intelligence, persuasion, performance management, leadership, all this sort of stuff, right? So the mentoring program is effectively structured around all these soft skill topics because those are the things that help distinguish you from any other person in the organization. And to be honest, to go from an individual contributor to a people manager, those are the skills that you need. We know that not everyone wants to become a leader, and there's so many different forms of leadership. Whether you're just demonstrating personal leadership by being proactive and going after a goal, or whether you're wanting to focus on career leadership, which is potentially climbing up the corporate ladder so that you can manage teams to deliver bigger outcomes that you wouldn't be able to do by yourself. So that's what our mentoring program focuses on, really helping juniors to intermediates accelerate across those soft skills. It's a completely virtual program, so it's about finding the right group. It's a group mentoring and coaching program, so you've got up to 4 other peers in your group that you equally learn from as well as your mentor. It's 1 hour a fortnight, and it goes over a 3 month period, so 6 sessions. So it's quite amazing where your first session, people are really awkward with each other. No one really wants to say anything. By the end of the session, everyone's smiling, laughing, and has been a little bit vulnerable and shared some stuff. And then from sessions 2 to 6, you just see, a really tight family unit develop. And come the sixth session, people are like wondering, is that where the 3 months went? My God, I don't want to say goodbye to this group. And so yeah, it's a quite a special thing.
Yeah, in our mentoring program, it was more of one-on-one. So
Yeah.
that group dynamics didn't come in through, which is you're not only learning from your mentor, but also from your
And
peers.
there's advantages and disadvantages, right? With one-on-one, sometimes you can share some things that you may not be too comfortable sharing with group. But like with the group, when you have peers your same age, the way they articulate their problems and their goals and their experiences may be completely different from you. So you learn equally as much from them as well as the mentor. But then sometimes people may not be super comfortable with sharing something that's happening personally. That might actually be the blocker that's actually affecting them at work. So there's advantages and disadvantages. Yeah.
Yeah, on the mentoring program itself, and in general, the participation in YSPN, do you have any, like, we talked that there's very less barriers, but do you have any barriers?
They can be anyone. They can be anyone. Our core audience is obviously Sikh because of the very niche name, we Young Sikh Professional Network. Young is also something that's coming up for debate because as I get older, does that just keep on increasing? But whilst the target demographic as are Sikhs, it is open to everyone. That's one of the core tenets of Sikhi as well, right? Sarbat da Bala. So we're open to everyone and we help everyone. And we've had a number of people, I think actually Perth led this, that we had a lot of non-Sikh attendees. We've got non-Sikh mentors, we've got non-Sikh speakers. What we're really trying to just drive is the values, right? We don't hold any monopoly on them, so no religion or community owns a monopoly on equality. It just so happens that we demonstrate that in abundance as Sikhs, but completely open to everyone.
So, you talked about, like, that the Sikh, the professionals who are coming in are more coming in with the hard skills, but not soft skills. Uh, Apart from that, what other challenges are there that the young Sikh professionals face when they join any organization? And, in terms of soft skills, we have talked about, but what are other skills? Because when I came to Australia, like, I'm just giving an example, but you'll probably elaborate more. I was told that you work in an
Yeah,
office, but you
yeah,
rise in an work environment in a pub. You network in pub,
yeah.
you go there, you
Yeah.
rise there, you make your connections there. Everything is done in a after the work, get-togethers. It might be in pub, might be in coffee places, might be anywhere. So that's one challenge that the new professional will probably face. What are some other
I,
ones?
I, I think what you've just mentioned is probably one of the biggest ones, right? Cultural assimilation and understanding the cultural dynamics, especially in a Western country, and that's slightly different, right? Um, I think one big one that I've noticed outside of some of the more striking cultural sort of challenges when you move from, for example, India to Australia or India to UK, etc., is is actually the spiritual and also sort of the cultural upbringing. So, as an example, I'll just give you one from a Sikh perspective, right? Humility is a really core value. We try not to use the word "me" or "I" too often and show our ego and all that sort of stuff. But when it comes to the working world, especially in professional services, when you go for promotion, you often lose out to those from maybe other backgrounds where they're like, no, 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 I did this and I led this and I led that. And I think for people of a South Asian culture, Sikhs as well as, broader the South Asian culture in general, we're very humble, and so we often downplay our achievements and share the credit. And I think that is a value that's starting to get recognized a lot more, but it's still hurting a lot of people within our community. So one of the biggest challenges I notice with a lot of people is that cultural belief system around not to talk back to your elders, not to showcase your achievements, not to be arrogant, not to be egotistical. And the thing is, there's ways in which you can do all of those things without disrespecting your culture, but then also sort of navigating it in a way which doesn't hold you back. So there are ways in which, at that promotional conversations, that you can actually showcase your achievements without coming across as arrogant and egoistic, which is something that is often focused on us, which is like, don't be that, right? And with not talking back to your elders, as an example, that often translates in the work environment to not confronting and challenging your bosses or those who are more senior than you. And a simple way or that you can just navigate that is say, instead of saying yes, 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 and all that sort of stuff, you could just say, I have a different perspective. That's not you outwardly challenging them, but it's you just now opening the door to have a more constructive conversation. Whereas I feel a lot of people from our culture will just not say anything and just accept it, and therefore either get more work or not challenge a bad decision or a bad approach or something that is suboptimal and all that sort of stuff. I think that's one of the biggest challenges I've sort of noticed.
So, when you said, like, when we talked about earlier about networking, do you see people facing challenges in making that networks in a workplace? And then, if you do see challenges, what are those challenges in networking, and what would advice you will give? You know,
Yeah, I think for people from our community, there's often a lot of image, that self-image that's reflected in how they network, and so often, especially with migrants, I've noticed that sometimes they don't feel comfortable in speaking English, and they think that, oh, I can't speak it as well, and so therefore I'm just going to default back to my mother tongue, and I'm just going to network with those people from the community and not sort of seek outwards, sort of networking. I think the thing I would sort of advise there is, um, instead of being more self-aware on whether I can speak or not, speak English fluently and how people are going to perceive me and am I going to get judged or they're going to laugh at me and all that sort of stuff. It's more about what value and experience can you bring to the conversation? What's your perspective? People are really interested. I don't care if I'm speaking to someone who's less educated or from a different background or someone who's a significantly more junior than me. I'm interested in what that experience has been and how they see the world and all that sort of stuff because that's enriching to me. So I think if you come at it from the mindset that I do have stuff I can contribute, I have a perspective, I have my own experiences, I think if you come at it from that perspective and you're willing to share that, then that automatically gives you a lot more confidence to go, I want to go out and share my story. And I'm equally as keen on understanding other people's stories. I think that's probably one of the biggest things I could sort of suggest in terms of networking.
so can I summarize it as being that I shouldn't be looking to network and make friends, rather than I should be looking to contribute to that discussion, and then when I start contributing, I'll
Yeah,
start opening up and they will start opening up.
yeah, look, I think go out there and network and try to build friends and all that sort of stuff. But I think doing it in a really authentic way sort of helps, and just coming at it from a mindset of I have something to contribute, I have value to add. I think that helps a lot. Networking, like I think in the olden days, and with some honestly networking, sometimes it can be really sleazy, which is like, hey, what do you do? Okay, you're not you're not someone that I'm going to network with. I'll buzz off and I'll find someone else. I think it's really about, what value can you add to people rather than making a very transactional sort of high and buy type situation.
So that's a subsequent thing I would like to know is that when I'm looking to go out, how do I, or how do people like the young Sikh professions in your network balance their identity versus what they have to do to get into those circles? In my, even in networking and even in professional
Yeah,
ambitions.
that's a really good question. I think some environments allow you to bring your full self and your authentic self. Some environments don't necessarily like that, and they would rather you fit into the mold and achieve the outcomes that they're looking for. So I think that's a really good question. It's a really tough question. Are you in an environment where you can be who you are and be proud of your culture and all that sort of stuff and share your experiences and whatnot? Or are you in an environment that, you know, wants you to act and behave a certain way to get the outcomes? And so that's you got to sort of identify which environment are you in, right? I've been in professional services and government and startup, and there's certain environments where they don't necessarily care so much about the individual themselves, and it's more about have you brought in revenue? Have you done this? Have you done that? Are you achieving your outcome? Oh, you're not annoying the client. You're maintaining our reputation really well, continue doing those things. And I think if you start having a conflict in what the organization's values are, whatever the written ones are, as well as the invisible, unspoken ones are, and it's in conflict with you, then you genuinely have to make a decision as to going, is this something, can I live with myself? And that's tough. That's really tough because sometimes you may not be in the financial position to leave an organization like that. So the best thing you can do is fall back on your networking, continue to meet people, continue to build your reputation outside, and find those people where eventually, if an opportunity does come up, that because they know you, they know your caliber, they know your experience, they know who you are, that, hopefully they would be able to provide you something.
Good. So you've talked about, and we have talked about from the new professionals and new Sikh people. Let's talk about, I've got things about from the organizational point of view as well. So when someone joins, and you have been in middle management and higher management as well, so you would have probably have these insights on when a new person comes in who doesn't looks like you, who's a Sikh with all that, paraphernalia, turban, whatever things. What do leadership thinks? Like, how should we deal with this?
I think most organizations nowadays are quite respectful of their multicultural employee base. So I think it's quite visual, especially for Sikhs. Whether you have a kara, whether you have a bug, whether you have a dari, whether you have single core in your name, I think most people, especially in Australia, have come across Sikhs now, so they're quite respectful. And they understand, the sort of religion a little bit. I think more broadly, when they see Indians, they understand. Okay, this person may or may not celebrate Diwali, as an example, but they often know that hey, this there's this is a people that come from a very sort of hardworking and respectful sort of culture. I think in my experience, majority of the organizations I've worked at, the management and leadership, that trained on how to be emotionally intelligent and culturally sort of linguistic and respectful. So I haven't had too much of an issue, but I also know a whole bunch of other people, especially who work in smaller firms or smaller businesses and all that sort of stuff. They may not necessarily have the exact same experience. So yeah.
And now that we have started getting into these companies and organizations, and it's a matter of only time then when you see people rising to leadership levels, and probably there are some people already in leadership level and who come back as mentors in your program, in your things. How do you see the Sikh values affecting the leadership style in these organizations?
Really, really good question. So I think what I've seen from our mentors, is that they really embody a lot of Sikhi values. The most predominant one is seva, because by naturally wanting to be a mentor and help people, they're contributing and doing that selflessly because they want to help the next generation grow. I think seva and equality are probably the two biggest things where I've seen as Sikhs, especially those in leadership and management positions, that they often create far more equitable environments, and environments in which everyone is given a fair go, and where they often demonstrate a lot of servant leadership by looking at what does the team need and how can I serve the team. Those are the leaders that I've seen. I know that that's not applicable to every Sikh, but I'm really happy that the mentors that we've had and the people that are come as speakers to all of the YSPN events, they demonstrate a lot of these values. So I think absolutely the values in which we've been indoctrinated, with growing up, going to Gurdwara, being a Sikh, has a huge impact on their leadership styles, right? Look at AJ Banga. Um, in a Mastercard, he set up like a social impact or social equity sort of program to help people from underprivileged backgrounds, right? That I'm assuming would have been, strongly influenced from his Sikhi background of equality, and trying to serve those who are more needy. If you look at Khalsa Aid, what a fantastic organization who demonstrate seva and courage in abundance and equality. They serve everyone, right? So I've seen some phenomenal Sikh leaders who truly practice the values, and I've seen how that really does impact the leadership style.
In as a professional, but also especially as a leader, there's a big thing then, how do you manage setbacks? So is there something that you train people through YSPN?
Yeah. Like we run a number of events on professional development, some of them coaching, some of them mindset, some of them, technical skills like communication and influence and all that sort of stuff. I can't remember off the top of my head if we've done something around like sort of how to deal with failure. It's definitely an important topic, especially in today's day and age. More and more people are, having anxiety and resilience is something that, in my observation, is something that needs to be developed a lot more of. So these are the things that we try to explore in podcasts and in some of our events. But I think within YSPN, more broadly, I would say like a a big unspoken thing is this concept of Chardi, and at the volunteer, we've got nearly 60 volunteers over 4 different countries, right? We're all working in professional jobs, fast-paced, high-stress jobs, and then you've got me, who is asking them to do more work on their weekends and in their evenings, right? And it takes a special person to be able to deal with all of those things. And when I've noticed, people are struggling, like I try to bring the concept of Tradrika to the forefront, that that resilient optimism to push through when things are hard. And when I see people struggling, sometimes we have one-on-ones and private conversations, and I try to help them that if they can continue to do this in addition to all the other things that are happening, that resilience and that fortitude is just going to aid them immensely. It provides a really strong foundation. So I think more broadly, yeah, that's the concept we're trying to put out a lot more as well. And if you look at our history to what the world needs now, I think that concept is incredibly important, and we could probably be doing more stuff around that, if I'm being honest.
uh, it's the first time I've heard the translation of Chardi Kalat into optimistic resilience, or good way to put it up. I still haven't thought of how we'll put it into those things, because we have to reach out to the community as well. So we have to interpret our values into, this is
I
how it
think
is.
just on your
So
point
it's
around, how to deal with setback and failure, I think everyone at any in all ages could probably benefit from this wisdom and skills on how to sort of navigate that.
yep, yep. So and are you looking to mentor these professionals, not just in professional, or would you remain in professional circles and not train them into other fields of community politics, going into advisory boards, or that's a good leadership training that I was part of recently.
It's a good one around how to get into advisory boards. Typically, that's for something that's for people who are a little bit more senior, right? People who are in a more senior leadership. So, getting onto boards and naturally, having those networks help them with, getting even higher up. I think it's definitely a topic worthwhile exploring. There's this quote often, start with the end in mind. So if you are really career orientated, whether you're in your first year of working, if you sort of understand what that roadmap is, that could be something really interesting to explore. Um, so we don't specifically do that, but that's something we could always look into. We always try to look at what does our audience want. So we're always sending out surveys and sort of identifying, what is the key thing that we can help you from a career perspective. That surprisingly hasn't come up yet, but who knows? Could come up in the future. This podcast might be the one that magically makes everyone think that. Yeah.
Hopefully, hopefully. Do you have any success stories that you would like to share with the people, that these are the success stories through our mentoring program across the years?
Yeah, I mean, like Daisy's a huge success story, right? She came through our mentoring program a number of years ago and unlocked a lot of, I think, identity things as well as more professional sort of development topics. And I remember it was after the program, within I think 6 months, she had started a number of social impact businesses, and now she's doing brand women comedy, which is ridiculously courageous. It brings to light a lot of topics that women are completely silenced by, especially in our community. So if we're talking about equality, justice, social justice, courage, like she's doing it in ample amounts there. We had another guy called Raman who went from a graduate to a VP in 8 years in investment banking. So in a very, very, very competitive industry, and on top of that, being visually different by wearing a bug. These are the things that can sometimes uh, allow other people to bring you down by poking fun and all that sort of stuff. So I would love to say that our mentoring program, was responsible for him becoming a vice president, but I think it definitely helped him along his way. We had another guy called Veer Daliwal who, after our program, also got into Lawyers Weekly, which is like the accolade if you're in the legal industry. We've had people who've gotten promotions, people who have gotten jobs, people who've become more confident. But then, just broadly within all the events that we run, it's just really nice, especially with the networking events. People just connect organically, and they strengthen that sense of identity and connection by meeting other Sikhs, which they may not meet at the Gurdwara, right? Because let's face it, a lot of us don't go to the Gurdwara nowadays, either due to not knowing the language anymore, having lost the language, or Gurdwara politics. And so it's a really nice thing when we see people connect and realize, hey, we're from the same culture. I understand what it means to grow up in a brown family. I understand what it means to traverse Sevar and go to Gurdwara, and this concept of that we need to give back, and we also need to keep, connected with our roots and our identity, and how do we navigate that in the real world and in the modern world. So I think like there's countless success stories I can sort of talk to there where people have found that tribe, people have been introduced to someone else, people have found job opportunities. I remember like it was last year at the last Brisbane event where someone they met they had to find a new place to live very quickly. One person at the event that they connected with helped them to move in within a couple of weeks to a brand new place. that they were struggling to find had they not met that person. So, yeah, it's just a great way to sort of meet people, share in a similar identity and culture, and then and succeed personally as well as professionally.
Uh, um, you talked about Daisy and her work with the woman, for social equality. And have you seen any more barriers for the Sikh woman to get into professional areas?
There's 100% a gender difference. I think women often suffer from imposter syndrome a lot more and think that they need to tick off all 10 tick boxes on a criteria before they feel needing to apply versus males who are like, hey, I've got one or two of the things I'm going to apply anyway. I think for women in general, there's a lot more barriers, and then I think being a brown woman, they face even more barriers around being a coloured person, often in a Western country. I think for Sikhs, the only sort of distinction I can make are those who are Amritdharis. They have an even greater challenge with a very strong and visual identity, which sometimes makes it really hard. We're going to have someone on the podcast who is an Amritdhari who rose to the top of the advertising industry, which is traditionally a male-dominated industry. We had um, Amrit Dillon, who is a general manager at Tesla. So I think she talked a little bit about her journey in a very white male dominated boardroom to be a Sikh female at a leadership level, and also having Elon in the room of course, right? So women definitely face a lot more issues than men,
you know
and I think on top of that, being someone from a colored background, where there's sometimes a bias, continues to add to the challenge. I think the good news is there are many organizations that are trying to combat this, and we're trying to do our part with providing equal playing fields of come, everyone's welcome. Everyone gets access to the same mentors. Everyone gets access to the same speakers. Everyone has the ability to network with anyone, regardless of gender. And where we're really trying to help, support and people grow. We're trying to do our part, and there's a whole bunch of other organizations which are standing even more for female development.
So things looking good, and hopefully I can talk to Amrita and other people someday and get their experiences and journey. Let's talk about your journey. How would you define? You talked about initially you joined SAP and then you rose, but how would you define your journey?
My journey has been all over the place, so sadly, I've not really cared so much about my career. I was very content doing, just whatever I was doing because I was trying to make a couple of side passions work. And I think the journey itself has still been rewarding because I think I've had more than 15 or 16 different jobs in 14 years. I changed jobs potentially more than I changed my underwear. And I think all of those things teach you something. So because I moved job to job to job to job, I got exposure to different industries. I got exposure to different types of organizations. So startup, public sector, consulting, small business, large organizations, multinational organizations. So I think irregardless of what you've gone through, you need to all see the silver lining and what have you learnt? What can you reflect on? I could have just stayed at the same job for 14, 15 years and could have become a director or a really senior leader at this point in time. I didn't, but at the exact same time, I've learned so much about different organizations, cultures, good leadership, bad leadership, red flags, and all this sort of stuff that I think is invaluable that sometimes other people don't get. And so that whole experience has really taught me this is the work that I like to do. These are the people that I like working with. These are the organizations and the purposes and which really, really attract me. Naturally, YSPN, funnily enough, has been my longest employment, probably like a factor of five. And like it's because of all those things that I realize, hey, these are the things that I like. This is why I'm so attracted and have stayed for so long, because I like growth. I like innovation. I like working with passionate people. I like social impact work. Like those are the things that, being in all those different jobs have taught me. Project management, I think, or project delivery more broadly, is a really important skill set. For lack of a better word, you're someone who gets stuff done. So I'm not a strategist. I understand strategy and I sort of know how to do it loosely, but I'm the guy that you get in to get stuff done, right? I think the journey as well, both my corporate career as well as YSPN has been invaluable, and I think volunteering is just invaluable because you're almost so you're not only doing your 9 to 5, but then you go and you experience another environment in which you learn even more things. And so your learning and development is often, 2 or 3 times more now, because whilst your peers go home and they switch off at 5 p.m., or in today's age, probably 4, um, we're continuing and we're learning and we're exposing ourselves to new ideas and we're building stuff and we're learning and getting instant feedback from that. So I think that's been something that I would say that's been my journey of just consistently learning, throwing myself into different environments, meeting different people, meeting the strategists, meeting the creatives, meeting the risk and audit and compliance focused people who are really detail orientated, and then meeting the conceptual and the doers and the social, people who love people development and all that sort of stuff. So I don't know if that answered your question, but
Good. No, no,
mm.
it's good. It's good because I have also, like, I was just thinking that it's my journey, not that long, but it's my journey. I've moved from organization to organization. I studied project management as well when I came in here. So I had project management skills and I did project management of that mentoring program. But then I moved to procurement and then I moved to contract management. At the side, I'm trying to store your stories and think stories like this through this podcast, which is again such a learning experience when I get to meet so many people and wide perspectives. And I have never heard about some things in Iran and some things in Brazil. So that's a learning experience. And so I was just thinking about the same thing what you said, that I might have stayed in one organization and probably been a manager or a senior manager now, but I have enriched in many other ways, which might not have monetized in monetary terms, but I've learned a lot of things, and it's internal happiness that you get out of doing different things. So I was thinking, that's my story. Probably in 14 years I'll be there. Uh, that's a good one. But did you had mentors?
I've always had someone who's been helping me, um, and it starts from childhood, right? It's sometimes they're not formal mentors. They're people who just done the same thing that you're trying to do, or someone who you just connect with that you want to learn a little bit more from. So ever since childhood, I've always had, someone that I've looked up to, multiple people that I've looked up to, that I've silently observed and then not so silently asked a million question froms. I used to do karate. I used to play music, so you would consider your senseis and your music teachers mentors as well. And then within the workplace, like I'm very lucky that I've always had some very good managers and leaders who have helped me to develop my skills. Within YSPN, we've got a board, so I'm really fortunate that there's ASX 200 top leaders at C-suite levels who help who who help me and the team, and then the mentors, right? A lot of the mentors are personal friends that are 10, 20 years, 30 years older than me, who continue to guide and provide advice and coach and all that sort of stuff. So, what have they taught? Geez, how many more episodes do you want to do? But I think it's everything, right? I think for me, the a lot of what I've learned has been around people management. I think that's probably been the biggest thing. Um, the technical stuff, how do you run this project? How do you set up this podcast and all that? Like, those are all technical things. Some people give tactical advice. I don't really, yeah, okay, that's sort of mentoring and giving advice and sort of helping you. But I think the stuff that's really mattered has been around leadership, how to deal with failure, how to be resilient, the mindset you need to develop as a leader, especially in a not for profit, right? Because it's hard. People come in, people go out, and you need to, have significant energy and strength to carry you forward, and you need to impart that passion onto others to, effectively light the candle for them, and then they go out and keep on lighting the candles, and then it becomes a movement and it becomes a lot bigger. So I think a lot of the stuff I've learned has really been on leadership, resilience, mindset, perseverance, creating an impact, purpose, a little bit of strategy stuff. I remember one of the best things I learned from one of the mentors was around personal branding, and they said your personal brand is what people say about you when you've left the room. I found that very powerful. Very, very, very powerful. There's been so many other just nuggets of wisdom like that. I can't recall it right now, but I think it's just stuff like that. And you can tell, like, with that personal brand, it's very soft skill based, right? It's an intangible, funny thing, but that's what people remember about you, and those are the things that are, the really important things to your success, whatever that sort of means for you.
So if you have to mentor your young self when you started your journey, are there some advices that you like to give? Probably because the other
Well,
new professionals who are starting in, they can benefit from those advices.
yeah, yeah.
I was read these
I
books where
think
they say
oh
things which
man,
I
that's
had
a very
probably
good
learned in
question.
school.
I would say, like, to Simon Sinek's book, Know Your Why. I I think that is really important. I think you need to have
That's a
your
good one.
north compass set. Otherwise, you're just wasting time. And that sometimes can place a lot of pressure on people, going, "Oh, I need to find out what my purpose is." Um, I think it's okay for you to know at this point in time, this is what I'm attracted to. This is what I like. This is what I'm finding interesting. Let's go with it. I think sometimes it's okay to just go at this point in time, I know what I want, I'm going to go for it. If you don't know what you want, and so if there's the people who so the advice would be, if you don't yet know what you want, what you're attracted to, what you're passionate about, go out there and experience the world. Taste everything. Do volunteering, get this job, go traveling, do this, do that. Color yourself and your experience with so many different things that you could almost use the process of elimination to say, I tried that, didn't really like it for now. And then sort of go, okay, well, this narrows it down to this is sort of what I like. So I think that's the first thing. Obviously, then sort of clarifying what that passion purpose is, and then discipline. If I had to go back in time, discipline would be probably the biggest thing I would teach myself, because all you need is a plan, and most things, most goals are achievable, but you need the discipline and, that passion and energy to actually move towards it. Otherwise, it remains a dream. It remains just this intangible thing, this amazing castle that you've built in the air, but has no foundations or structure in reality. So, you got to sort of question yourself and go, is it a dream? Am I comfortable with just continuing to think of that, or do I actually want to make this a reality? Yeah. So, yeah, passion, purpose, north compass, and then discipline, planning. I think those are probably the biggest things that I would go back and teach myself.
Uh, you run this big organization, YSPN, and it's all volunteers. And I think
Yes.
it's four times more hard to bring in and keep the volunteers working than in a work environment because they have been paid. Volunteers run on passion, and I think their why of doing volunteering. So, how is it your experience of running YSPN? What are the challenges? Like we've seen the benefits and the good thing coming out, but what's how is it in the
Yeah, that's a
background?
great
You
question.
are
I
in the
think
background. You're running this
uh,
organization. How's it? How do
the
you see
biggest
from
challenge
there?
with any not-for-profit organization are the people that you have running it with you. And if you lose those people, and if you don't have many people, then you can only do so much. Your impact can only be so much when you've got two people and you're trying to create a global change with two people. It's very hard, right? So I think the biggest challenge has always been, finding really passionate people who are committed, who understand that what we are effectively asking is you to take on a part-time job on top of your full-time job, and you're not getting paid for it. So it's finding those people who know that they are doing stuff for a far bigger cause than themselves, and that they have the time management and the commitment and the fortitude to do all that work, in a part-time capacity where sometimes people might drop off. That's one of the biggest challenges. Funding is another challenge, right? Everything that we do is completely organic. Like, it's embarrassing how many, like how much of money we have in our bank account, but the impact that we create, right? So funding, a challenge for me and a personal frustration is, we could, like, if I had access to like $50,000, um, the impact that we could create is exponential. So that's a challenge, knowing that you could do a lot more if you were somewhat funded. Like, I've worked in public sector. The millions of dollars that I've seen being wasted on the most, ridiculous things makes you go, "Oh, if I had 1% or 10% of that budget, what could I do, right? We could change the world." So I think that's another big challenge. I think engagement is a really big challenge, again, because it's a volunteer organization. It's very hard to get people on all hands calls or on networking events and all that sort of stuff, because everyone's got their own plans, right? And they're already busy, not even 9 to 5, from like 7 to maybe 7 or 7 to 8. And then to sort of get people's time and availabilities, to connect an organization and make them really feel, bonded. I think that's another big challenge as well. Yeah.
So, uh, would you like to reach out to, like, because once, what I've seen is, once the government funding comes in, there's all these strings attached. You have to do this, you don't have to do this, things like that. Similar with corporate funding, there's always strings attached. So, is there a challenge in meeting YSPN's
I
goal?
think I think I think we've been very lucky with the couple of grants that we've won. The strings attached are very aligned to what we're doing, so that's never really been a problem. But yeah, where if I was given a hypothetical situation where we were given $1 million, and but we had to do X, Y, Z, and it was in a misalignment, then that's where, again, the Sikhi values comes into play, right? Are we being truthful to ourselves? Are we accepting, money and not being true to ourselves and dishonoring the original intent? But luckily, we've been in a position where that hasn't happened.
It's good, like, knowing your why. It's also personal, but also the organizational why we're here. So yeah, that's a good one, because I've seen mentoring programs dying out or withering away because there's so much less funding, or the interest dies down. It's hard to bring it up, but it dissipates very fast. Before closing, it's a good time. I think it's almost 1 hour, so it's a good time to close. But how would people find YSPN? And is there any new programs or something coming up that might interest, so that people can join and do?
Yeah. So number one, people can find us on pretty much all social media platforms. So I think TikTok, Twitter, and YouTube are the latest ones that we've added. But if you just type Young Sikh Professional Network on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, etc., you'll find us. Um, just follow the social channels, and if you want, just go to our website and subscribe to our newsletter, and you'll get monthly emails. Um, on all the latest things. So then, to your next point, there's always face to face as well as digital events to make it more easily accessible to people from wherever to be joining us. So um, over the course of the year, we continuously run events. Um, In terms of initiatives, so we've got the mentoring program that's available for one more week. Sorry, applications close on May the 5th, I think a Monday. But then we're holding another one, so that's something else to look out for, and that's going to be a completely rebranded and refreshed program. And then podcasting. So we're on Spotify and on YouTube, and that's just another great way for people to see a global community of change makers and very successful individuals who are sharing their story. And you can listen to it in your car, on the train, etc., etc. Uh, so Spotify and YouTube are the other two places in which you can just access all of our stuff on demand. No worries.
Good. Wonderful. Wonderful. Thank you for Amar for doing this,
Thank you.
sharing YSPN story and your story. It needs to be brought out because I've worked with other professional networks who uh, are much more visible. So I thought like YSPN should also be much more visible, especially in my area where WA and uh, I've known a few people, and
Thank you.
it
Thank
should
you for
go
the
up much more. And there's lot people can
I
benefit from
really
it.
appreciate it, and thank you for the opportunity as
Thank you for
well.
doing all the good work that you're doing. Yeah, and